Well, hi there, Mango. How are you doing today? I thought I'd bring out my little friend to help me read today's story. Today's theme is dolls. And, well, this was once my look-alike doll. It's funny. We almost look too similar, wouldn't you say so yourself? I wonder why that could be.
Well, hello there, everybody. Are you enjoying this week's Spring Break Spooktacular? I know Ikrak is. He's tuned in for tonight's. Tonight, we're bringing you two scary tales about dolls. We're going to start off with one that was actually requested of me to do, and it's called Robert the Doll. In the late 1800s, Thomas Otto and his family moved into a mansion at the corner of Eaton and Simonton in Key West, Florida, now known as the Artist House. The Ottos were known to be stern with their servants, sometimes even mistreating them. It was the treatment of one such Haitian servant that provides a twist in this story. The woman was hired to take care of their son, Robert. One day, Mrs. Otto supposedly witnessed her practicing black magic in their backyard and fired her. Before she left, the woman gave Robert a lifelike doll which stood 3 feet tall, had buttons for eyes, human hair, believed to be Robert's, and was filled with straw. Dolls that resembled children were not unheard of in this time, but this one proved to be special. Robert named the doll after himself and often dressed it in his clothes. Robert the doll became his trustworthy companion. He took it with him on shopping trips to town. The doll had a seat at the dinner table where Robert would sneak it bites of food when his parents weren't looking. Robert would even be tucked into bed with the boy at night. Soon, this innocent relationship took on a strange nature. Soon after, Robert chose to be referred to by his middle name, Jean, after being scolded by his mother. He told her that Robert was the doll's name, not his. Jean was often heard in his toy room having conversations with Robert. Jean would say something in his childish manner, and responses could be heard in a much lower voice. Sometimes, Jean would even become very agitated, worrying the servants and his mother. She would, on occasion, burst in there to find her son cowering in a corner, while Robert sat perched in a chair or on the bed, glaring at him. This was only the beginning. Household objects would be found thrown across the room, Jean's toys turned up and mutilated, and giggling could be heard. Whenever these unusual acts took place, Jean always said, "Robert did it." The boy took the punishment, but always insisted that the blame was Robert's. As the mischief grew, more and more servants took their leave as new ones were hired. The Otto's relatives felt it was time to do something. With the recommendation of a great aunt, Jean's parents removed Robert from his care and placed him in a box in the attic. This is where he resided for many years. After the death of his father, Jean was willed his boyhood home. He decided to live in the Victorian mansion with his new wife. Jean had become an artist and felt the house was spacious and would provide him with a place to paint. He went to the attic and dusted off his childhood toy. He became attached to the doll despite his wife's displeasure. Jean would take the doll along with them everywhere they went. He even sat in his favorite little chair while Jean and his wife slept nearby. The Tourette room became Robert's domain after Mrs. Otto moved him back to the attic. Their marriage slowly became sour until Mrs. Otto supposedly went insane and died of unknown reasons. Jean followed soon behind. Robert supposedly attacked people, sometimes locking them in the attic. People who passed claimed to hear evil laughter coming from the Tourette room. For some time, Robert remained in the empty house by himself until a new family purchased the mansion and restored it. The doll was once again moved to the attic. This pleased it as much as it did last time. The doll was often found throughout the house. On one certain night, Robert was found at the foot of the owner's bed, giggling, with a kitchen knife in his hand. This was enough to send them fleeing from the home. Robert was later moved to the East Martello Museum in Key West, where he sits, perched in a glass box. Despite his new living quarters, the doll is believed to not have given up his menacing ways. Visitors and employees claim they have seen the doll move. His smile has been known to turn into a scowl. One employee cleaned Robert, turned off all the lights, and left for the night. The next day, he returned to find the lights on, Robert sitting in a different position than the night before, and a fresh layer of dust on his shoes. Some say he'll even curse you. If you want to take a picture of him, you must ask politely. He'll tilt his head in permission. However, if he doesn't, and you take the picture anyways, a curse will befall upon you and anyone who accompanied you to the museum. The same will happen if you make fun of him. To this day, Robert remains at the East Martello Museum in his sailor suit, clutching his stuffed lion, continuing his menacing ways.
not bad, but I have one that will make you never want to look at a doll ever again, and it is called Dollface. It was my birthday. Oh, how excited I was! I was 5 years old, the center of attention, gifts being lavished upon me. I got everything I wanted, save for a unicorn, of course. Dolls, toys, clothes, paints, everything that could thrill a 5-year-old girl. Oh, sweetie, you forgot one. My mother pushed a brown package to me. I swelled with excitement, my little hands tearing into the paper. I didn't even notice that it wasn't brightly wrapped like everything else. I didn't notice my mother asking my father quietly who it was from, or the shrug he gave her. A gasp escaped my lips as I pulled out a box. Inside was the most beautiful doll I had ever seen. She looked just like me. Long blonde curls, creamy complexion with freckles on the cheeks, bright green eyes, and she wore an adorable little dress, the one I was wearing, with Mary Jane shoes. She was larger than my other dolls, and more delicate. She was made out of porcelain, and my mother told me I had to be gentle with her. Of course I would be gentle. How rude! I named her Amelia, and she was my best friend. I would carry her around with me wherever I went. I would pull her around in my little red wagon. I would sit with her under the big oak tree in our backyard, enjoying each other's company and telling her secrets. Oh, how I wish my little Amelia would speak back. Oh, how I wish I never made that wish. My mother had just tucked us into bed, and I had Amelia in my death hold. My mother disliked the thought of me sleeping with her, in case something happened and she broke. I would be sleeping with shattered glass. But I convinced her to let Amelia stay, as long as I promised to go right to sleep.
Of course, Mommy,
I said with a little giggle. As soon as she closed the door, I started whispering to Amelia.
Mommy is so silly. I don't want to go to sleep yet. I want to talk with you.
Of course. I had spoken to Amelia plenty of times before this, but she never spoke back. But to my utter delight, tonight was different. I could see her lips moving, but I knew the voice was coming with her. It was just as I imagined it to be.
I want to talk with you too.
Her voice was soft and smooth, comforting. It made me feel relaxed just hearing it. I hugged her closer.
You can talk?
Of course I can. You just never listened before, silly girl. I was ecstatic. I sat up in bed. I had to tell Mommy and Daddy that my doll was talking. They would be so excited to hear. No, sweetie. She stopped me before I could call. This is a secret between me and you. Mommy would be jealous, and she would take me away. You wouldn't want that, would you? Amelia's voice sounded as if she were pleading. I felt a small wave of panic at the aspect of my mom taking my doll away. I lowered myself back into bed, pulling Amelia close.
No, I don't want that. I want to be with you forever.
If she could have smiled, I'm sure she would have. You will be, child. You will be. For the next several weeks, Amelia and I became even closer than before. I would talk with her, and she would talk back. She was my best friend. I loved her so much. It was like we were joined at the hip. Everywhere I went, I had to bring her. My mother was getting a bit tired of this, but she let me have my fun. But despite being extra caring, I was still only 5 years old. It was only a matter of time before I dropped Amelia. I was heartbroken. There was a crack going right through her pretty face. I was inconsolable, and my mother assured me that it was nothing serious. But she couldn't hear Amelia. Amelia was furious at me for dropping her. She yelled and shouted and ignored my sniffling apologies. She refused to talk to me for several days, in which I became increasingly depressed and moody. Finally, though, Amelia had forgiven me. So I had thought.
You know,
Amelia said one night. I turned towards her, eager to hear what she had to say.
I am disappointed that you dropped me. Now my face is ruined. I want a new body.
I giggled a bit.
How do you get one of those? It's really very simple, my dearest child.
Her voice turned cold, and she looked at me with those green eyes.
I just take yours.
I gave another nervous laugh and shook my head.
Where will I be then? Does it matter?
I felt tiny, cool porcelain hands stroke my face. I closed my eyes tightly, feeling a crushing panic in my chest. I wanted to scream for my mother, but my voice wouldn't come out for more than a squeak. I wish that I had. It was the strangest sensation. It was like when you stay underwater for too long and your chest starts to hurt, and you feel a wave of panic because you don't know if you'll get to the surface in time before you pass out. But as soon as you break the surface and the air rushes into your lungs, you feel immediate relief and a thrill. Except this. After you break the surface, you realize that the air is still too thick to breathe. You struggled trying to get oxygen into your lungs, but to no avail. And right at the brink of passing out, you think one last vivid thought. Where will I go? Of course, I found out eventually. I'm sitting here in a lovely glass case, sitting on the mantel, watching a happy family and a beautiful little girl who had gotten too old to carry around the old cracked doll of hers. I'm watching her be me. I'm watching my life pass before my very eyes. Every now and then, she looks at me and gives me a small, knowing smile. And that was Dollface.